Go Tigers.
And the next 4 years, I'm going to Denver University.
Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977. Now, here's D Squared.
Welcome, everyone, to this Thursday edition of the Blitz Sports Radio. I am D Squared. This is the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared, and we are going to talk some SEC baseball today, have our weekly visit with Chris Lee, who is going to join us, and we're going to, kind of break down last weekend and really just the bizarre, weird, strange situation. I still don't think there's anything to it from an Alabama perspective with players or coaches, but very, very strange. Never really seen it before with, the situations in Ohio and New Jersey and FanDuel taking Alabama baseball off of their boards as far as betting because of the weird, behavior that happened last Friday when Alabama lost 8-6 to the LSU Tigers. Were down 8-1. Paul Skees was the real deal. Guy's the best pitcher in the country, throwing 100, 6 innings, just shut Alabama down to only 1 run. Alabama scored 5 runs in the ninth to make it close. No cigar. LSU wins. They go on to win and sweep the series. So just a very weird situation, no doubt about it. We're gonna talk about the SEC. We're gonna preview that series starting tonight that you'll be able to hear on our sister station, ESPN 97.7 The Zone, as the Vanderbilt Commodores are going to travel to Alabama to take on the Crimson Tide. As I believe the first 2 games of the series are both at 7 o'clock on Thursday and Friday, and then the final game of the week is going to be on Saturday at 2 in the afternoon. So it's going to be interesting to just kind of talk to Chris Lee and get his thoughts on what about this series, about Vandy, who bounced back tremendously, no question about that. Vanderbilt did after getting swept at Tennessee, and really it was unexpected. Tennessee had come in kind of struggling, but certainly the Vanderbilt Commodores bounced back exceptionally well and ended up winning that series and sweeping a really good Kentucky team that really kind of handled Alabama, no doubt about it, earlier in the year. Vanderbilt right now 16-5. They are 33-11 overall. That sweep knocked Kentucky back to 11-10 to show you how tough this league is. 30-13 overall. But yeah, last week certainly it was a great job, by the Vanderbilt Commodores as they were able to knock off the Kentucky Wildcats and did a great job in that series as the Vanderbilt Commodores at home swept Kentucky, winning 3-2 on Sunday to complete that sweep. So certainly a huge bounce back for them. Vanderbilt's 32-11 overall. Been really ranked in the top 5 all year. They're ranked 5th in the current poll. Alabama unranked, and as we said, they took a sweep at LSU. LSU, some people believe, is the most talented team in the country, the number 1 team in the country. Certainly Dylan Cruz is unbelievable. The guy is hitting nearly 500 in the SEC. I mean, you can't get any better than that right now. LSU 35-8 after, that was through SEC play. I always forget, and really nobody. It's been exam week, I think, throughout the SEC, so there hasn't been a ton of results. In the midweek. South Carolina did beat Winthrop 6-1 yesterday. I believe that was the only game played in the league on Wednesday. So that's so far, been. And then Ole Miss outscored Arkansas Little Rock 12-10. Florida State, who's just has had such trouble. Florida has dominated them. I think winning 16 of the last 18. Florida, who's ranked 4th in the country, they beat the Seminoles 7-5 in midweek action. And then Georgia beats Kennesaw State 10-9. and Tennessee, they beat Wofford 13-3, and Missouri is able to outscore Kansas and win that game 9-7. So it's been really interesting to kind of see what's been happening in the Southeastern Conference and continue to follow that action. And then Vanderbilt did play a midweek game. They actually beat Georgia State 11-5, and Arkansas lost in extra innings to the Lipscomb Bison, and Texas A&M was able to beat Tarleton State 6-5, and then LSU blanked Southeastern Louisiana 10-0. LSU had dropped a couple of midweek games, but now they bounced back, and they're red hot, and a lot of people believe they could be the favorite for the national championship. So we will see, no doubt about it. But we're going to talk to Chris Lee about that and more, and talk some SEC baseball with him going forward, and just get his thoughts on where the league is, because amazingly the season flies by. There's only 3 weekends left in regular season play in the Southeastern Conference. Midweek games are nearly wrapped up. Alabama will have to go to Montgomery and play a really good Troy team that they've already beaten once, but a really good Troy team. I want to say at Biscuit Stadium in Montgomery will be where that game is played. That will be next week, and it will be Alabama's final midweek game of the year. And Alabama has only dropped one during the season, which was to UAB, and so they need to beat Troy. They need to stack some wins up. They still have a very respectable record in RPI. I think their RPI right now is 21, something like that. So they look like they've got a great chance of getting to a regional, but they need to try to at least take one game from Vandy. And then their last 2 series are winnable. They go to Texas A&M, who, much like Alabama, is 9-12 in the conference and has been very up and down. And then they will finish against the Ole Miss Rebels, who finally won their first series. That's hard thing to fathom. That Ole Miss won their first SEC series of the year, the defending national champions. Certainly, as Ole Miss was able to win 2 out of 3 and take that series. They're now 5-16 on the year, but it's been a very tough road for Ole Miss, as they have had issues getting SEC and serious wins, and just being consistent all year, because, again, like we've said, the Southeastern Conference is the toughest league in the country, and Ole Miss has certainly had a target on their back, and they were able to take 2 out of 3 from Georgia. Georgia's been extremely up and down all year. Georgia had just, had a resurgence the last couple of weeks after they looked like they could be the worst team in the SEC. This league, you never know from a week-to-week basis how things are going to go. So certainly Alabama's got an opportunity to strengthen their resume against Vanderbilt, but playing a team, coached by Tim Corbin, that is never going to be easy. And we'll talk to Chris Lee, VandySports.com and Southeastern14.com. He and Blake Lovell probably cover SEC baseball as well as anyone, and we're going to pick their brain and see what they think about the Southeastern Conference right now, and where they could, and where Vanderbilt is as a program, and that sweep over Kentucky. What were they able to get back to doing well? Because really they could have easily won the Friday game over Tennessee at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. They gave up 3 home runs to lose the game, but 2 in the bottom of the 9th when they had a 3-1 lead, and then gave up a walk-off, I believe, to lose 4-3 in 12 innings. And then their pitching just didn't show up the next 2 games. They gave up 17, then gave up 10. It's very unusual. You don't see that happen to a Tim Corbin coach team. So for the last couple of years, for whatever reason, Tennessee has had Vandy's number, but Vandy responded in kind, though, and swept a very, very good Kentucky team who came to Alabama in Tuscaloosa, nearly swept the Tide, and took 2 out of 3 games from Brad Bohannon's Bama team. So this is going to be a big series for Alabama, as we said. They don't have many opportunities left to continue to pad their resume. This is one of them. With the number 5 team in the country, Vanderbilt. If they could win 2 out of 3, it would be immense for Alabama, because, as I said, to feel good about being in the NCAA tournament field and even about getting a 2 seed, I think they need to win 14 regular season SEC games, and right now they're at 9, so that would mean they'd have to get 5 more wins, and certainly they're smarting from that sweep against LSU, though I don't think Alabama played poorly against LSU. They certainly didn't swing the bats poorly. I don't care what this lunacy going on in Ohio and New Jersey saying. I don't think anything nefarious was going on from an Alabama perspective from players and coaches. I think they just fell short. Now somebody else not affiliated with Alabama may have got tipped off and tried to place a bet, some degenerate, who knows, but I think it's some ambulance chasing myself, but it is still a very strange situation. Never really seen anything like it in college baseball, but certainly, I think when you look at Alabama, they don't have a lot of bad losses. I know people were talking about that Columbia series where they lost 2 out of 3, but if Columbia wins the Ivy League and gets a automatic bid, I don't think it's a bad loss. So as far as series loss, so certainly it wouldn't be that concerning. I think the one bad loss is, for whatever reason, it's been a rebuilding year for Casey Dunn's UAB Blazers. They have not had a good year. They just lost to Division III Birmingham Southern the other day. That Alabama wasn't sharp defensively, and they were able to, weren't able to pull that game out. It was when they lost in extra innings. But Alabama needs to stack some more wins if they want to feel comfortable about getting to Hoover. And then if you get to Hoover, you got to feel pretty comfortable about getting into the NCAA tournament, though that didn't work out for Alabama last year, even though they got to Hoover. So you need to get some more wins. Alabama, last year, the situation was they lost several midweek games, I think at least 5, and that was really kind of the death blow for Alabama. That hasn't happened this year, so they don't have any bad losses. But if you're Alabama, you'd rather be a 2, not a 3. You don't want to be sweating it out. I don't think Alabama's going to host this year unless they go on some red-hot run the last 3 weeks and then win some games in Hoover. That would be the only opportunity that would happen, and I think that's probably slim chance that happens. I think this Alabama team, though, they do have a very real shot at a 2 seed, and if they could beat Vanderbilt, 2 out of 3, it might be the biggest series win in Brad Bohannon's tenure at Alabama when you consider that Vanderbilt should be a national seed, should definitely host and have a chance to get back to Omaha, which is, what Tim Corbin's done. He's won 2 national championships at Vanderbilt. What he's done there, what he's built is nothing short of phenomenal, especially when you consider, back in the 90s how bad Vanderbilt baseball was, and Ole Miss. And both now have been able to climb the mountain and win national titles. Mississippi State finally broke through and got theirs a couple years ago, yet they're still struggling under Chris Lemonis. As we know, Jake Foxall, the pitching coach, he got dismissed this week, so a change there. Mississippi State's been struggling on the bump, and so they make a change at pitching coach. So there's been a lot going on, no doubt about it, in the SEC, as there always is, and it is a meat grinder. No question about that. So, but I think Chris Lemonis is going to be all right, though. Mississippi State has shown some signs of getting better and hopefully getting to Hoover, because it's always better when they're there. They have such a passionate fan base, and they'll certainly turn out, and there'll be great fan support in the Hoover Met for Mississippi State baseball. And Slade Alford having a good year, too, former Bob Jones alum. It's been good to see also, certainly, Caden Rose back for Alabama. He can be such an impact player, and he's had a really nice run with the University of Alabama. So it's been great to see those things taking place, no doubt about it. But, as we said, LSU coming off of, that series win over Alabama. They've got one of the better, programs in the country, no question about it. And right now, they've got a huge series against Auburn, and we know that Butch Thompson's team has shown signs of life. They had been struggling a little bit and lost that series to Alabama, and there were some people concerned. But the one thing that Butch Thompson's team has done is they have, they went to South Carolina, and South Carolina up until that Auburn series was probably considered the best team in the country. Or at least in the SEC, along with LSU, probably they're probably not considered overall as talented as the team over in Baton Rouge. But South Carolina and Mark Kingston, they've had a little bit of a renaissance so far, and certainly it's been tremendous to see them bounce back and really be the best team for much of the season in the SEC and in the SEC East, and they've hit the ball out of the ballpark. But Auburn, I mean, it just seemed like they had a different mindset, and that's why I think they were able to win that series and come back and they took the first two games 8-3 and 9-5. Then they fall 8-7 and led for much of the Sunday game. But it was certainly good for Auburn to get that series win, and with this opportunity at Plainsman's Park coming up with LSU traveling to Auburn, if they could win back-to-back series over arguably the two best teams in the league, South Carolina and LSU, it would completely change their outlook. First of all, I think they would be a lock to get to Hoover, and second, they would be almost a lock to get into the NCAA regionals. And after they lost 2 out of 3 to Alabama, after beating Alabama 8-4 and then dropping the next two in Tuscaloosa, there was some doubt as to if it was Auburn going to get to Hoover, are they going to get to the postseason? But that performance against South Carolina was tremendous, and really it's a credit to Butch Thompson and his coaching staff because they do an outstanding job each year in and year out. They've been to Omaha 2 of the last 3 years, and so when you look at that, and they always seem to play their best baseball down the stretch, and this could be a signal for that, and certainly will be if if they go ahead and beat LSU in that series at home this week. And so we'll see, but certainly Auburn with a huge opportunity as the Bayou Bengals come to town starting this today on Thursday, because as we said, the series, this week being exam week, especially at Alabama and in the state of Alabama, the schedule's a little bit different, and so Vanderbilt and Alabama are going to get started. Ole Miss and Missouri are going to get started tonight as well. Let me correct myself. It looks like the Auburn series will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sometimes it's hard for me to keep up with how they're scheduling these. But Tennessee will be at Georgia. That will start on Friday. South Carolina will be at Kentucky. That's going to be a huge both those squads looking to bounce back after South Carolina lost the series at home to Auburn, and then Kentucky was swept on the road by Vanderbilt. Ole Miss looking for their second series win in a row after winning 2 out of 3 against Georgia. Ole Miss will play Missouri, and so that will be at Mizzou. Mizzou's been struggling. They're in last place in the East, and Alabama 2 weeks ago swept them in Columbia. Florida, the number 4 ranked Gators, they're going to go to struggling Texas A&M and try to keep the Aggies' struggles continuing. And then LSU, as we said, they're headed to Auburn. That game will be at 6 on Friday to kick that series off. Arkansas traveling to Starkville. That's a big series for Mississippi State to stay relevant. And then, as we said, Game 2 of Alabama and Vanderbilt will be on Friday as well. And as we talked about too before, we started kind of breaking it down with Chris Lee. There is only 2 series starting today, and Ole Miss at Missouri is tonight, and then Vanderbilt at Alabama, and then the rest of the series all start on Friday. But I'll tell you what, we're going to go on a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Chris Lee of VandySports.com and Southeastern 14. But before we go on that break, don't forget later this afternoon from 2 to 4 will be the Bandyman, Bailey Lowry, Captain Cool, John Abraham. They're going to bring you the afternoon blitz on this Thursday. Also, don't forget to download the Blitz Sports Radio app. We've been going strong since late July. Please download it at your Google Store, your Apple Store. And if you haven't, please download the 97.7 The Zone app. So many of you have, but you'll be able to hear Alabama baseball starting tonight at 6:55, also at 6:55 on Friday, then at 1:55 on Saturday. all this weather permitting, of course. But the 97.7 The Zone is the home for Alabama Crimson Tide baseball, no question about that. And then don't forget to support Alumni Hall, alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall over at the Bridge Street Town Center. They have moved from their new location, temporary one, for the next couple of months, over next to Belk until they finish their new home, which will be next to Buckle, which will be even more square footage than their old location that they were for so many years, just down from the Apple Store. And it will be next to Buckle, and they will add Tennessee to their repertoire of Alabama and Auburn, and they can take care of all your Alabama and Auburn needs right now for your Mother's Day, your Father's Day, graduation presents, birthday presents. Just go by and see their great staff. They're hiring as well, and so Andy and all those great folks over there. But Alumni Hall's website, alumnihall.com, outstanding as well. Very reasonable shipping if you're looking for maybe a school outside of the Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee realm. And don't forget, if you sign up for their Hall Pass rewards, for every $150, you get $10 free, and you can stack those as well. But we're going to go on a break. We come back. Chris Lee going to join us to talk some SEC baseball. Stay with us here on this Thursday edition of the Recruiting Blitz.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seed, managing partner of University Kia, letting you know we are proud supporters of Crimson Tide football. Stop in the University Kia today and shop our large selection of new Kias, including the all-new Telluride 8-passenger SUV, the stylish new K5, and sporty new Seltos. Visit universitykia.com for all our great offers. And get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia today. Because we want to see you in a Kia. Roll Tide!
At Bryant Bank, we believe your goals are worth chasing, and every step along the way is worth celebrating. From your hopes for the future to the challenges that keep you up at night, we're here for you. Bryant Bankers put care into action to help you live legendary by stepping up when you need us most and doing what's right even when no one is watching. Come experience a local bank whose people greet you by name and treat you like family. Bryant Bank, member FDIC.
This is Wes Neighbors with Philip with Eagle Insulation, and we have an announcement to make.
Yes, Wes, we are now Eagle Masonry and Insulation. Still a place to call for your installation needs, but now we offer masonry services.
What kind of masonry projects can you handle?
Wes, no job is too big, no job is too small. We can do renovations, new construction, outdoor fireplaces, fire pits, brick landscape borders.
Well, when you came out to my house, you did both the insulation and masonry at the same time. You guys did rock for me, you did brick for me, and you insulated my house. That's usually done at the same time that you're building a house.
Absolutely. It really capitalizes on two services you need at the same time, and you can get one company to handle both of those.
Philip with Eagle Insulation will come out, do your installation. He'll do your masonry. They do a great job. They guarantee your work. Check out more online at insulatedwitheagle.com and schedule your free examination today. 256-755-1556.
Thanks, Wes.
I'm with Ross from Southern Gent Landscaping. Now, Ross, lawn care is a key part of the landscaping business, but Southern Gent does just more than lawn care, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Here at Southern Gent Landscaping, we offer a variety of services to best satisfy our customers' needs, some of which include your typical landscape maintenance, your landscape installation, final grading, hardscaping, irrigation, AstroTurf, pretty much everything outside.
And let the people know where they can reach you.
You can reach us at 256-509-6088, and you can see some of our completed projects at Southern Gent Landscaping on Instagram.
That is Southern Gent Landscaping. Professional landscaping performed with satisfaction guaranteed.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Normally, when you call a roofing company, all you hear is, you need a new roof. Not when you call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Since 1965, the folks at Fleming have been focused on what you need, whether it's an easy repair or a full roof replacement, commercial or residential. And when it comes to storm damage, you want Fleming on your side. They know all the ins and outs of insurance claims and will guide you through the entire process. Log on FlemingHSV.com and book your free estimate today. Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I am D Squared, Drew D. Armand, and we're about to talk with our next guest, who's been a frequent guest on the show and on 97.7 The Zone's Talking Ball. A great friend of mine, as well wired into SEC baseball as anyone, along with his cohort, Blake Lovell, another really good friend of the show. They do a great job at southeastern14.com of not just covering SEC baseball, but SEC basketball, SEC football as well. Their YouTube channel is booming, no question about it. He's also been the publisher of VandySports.com for the last 20 years, and we certainly are going to preview this Alabama Vandy baseball series, but we have some breaking news coming in college basketball-wise, and I'm sure he's aware of it now as well. Now, it's not really SEC-related, but it certainly will have ramifications because of the transfer portal. Hunter Dickinson, who has had a very high-profile move from Michigan, where he was a star for 3 years for Juwan Howard, but their team did not go to the NCAA tournament this year. They lost in the NIT. It was a little bit of a down year for the Wolverines. Hunter Dickinson deciding to move on. He visited, a couple teams in his backyard. He's from DeMatha High School. He visited Georgetown. He is certainly, and there was some thought he might go there and play for Ed Cooley. That didn't happen, certainly. And he visited Villanova in the Big East. No question about that. There was some thought that he might go to Maryland because they're in his backyard. They were a fellow Big Ten school, and Kentucky. That's where the SEC angle kind of comes in. Calipari, even with Oscar Tshiebwe with a chance to return, Kentucky had kind of thrown their hats in the ring. But he visited Kansas. I said on 97.7 The Zone's Talking Ball this morning, my gut was telling me it would probably be the Jayhawks, and it turns out it is. And Bill Self's Jayhawks went out. They're going to be one of the best teams in the country. I guess they'll be one of the top 4 or 5 teams, one of the favorites to win the national championship now. And before we discuss some baseball, we'll get Chris Lee's thoughts on that. Chris, welcome back to the show. Good morning. How are you?
No, I'm doing great. I guess the rich keep getting richer, and I know that was a lot of people thought Kentucky might be a destination. That's a blow, obviously, to Kentucky. He's an interesting player. I got to play in the NIT here, and he's just kind of an old school type of post guy. There's not a lot of guys like that around, but very skilled, and that's a great addition for Kansas.
It really is, no question about it, man. And and again, it's all legal now. I expected it to be Kansas because I know they're a very aggressive NIL school, and basketball is what means the most to them. And so with Bill Self and what he's done, he's won 2 national championships. They had a great team this year. They got banged up and ended up having a disappointing exit to Arkansas in the second round of the NCAA tournament. But they're always contenders, and I just felt like the Kentucky buzz had kind of waned, and Kansas to me just made the most sense for him if he wanted to get because I think a lot of this had to do, Chris, with he's not going to be a high draft pick in the NBA, probably not even next year either, because you just said it. He's an old school big, but he was looking to maximize his chance to win a title and his NIL opportunity.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Oscar Tshiebwe last year. I mean, once upon a time when we grew up, a guy like that, might have been a top 10, 15 pick in the draft. But just the game has changed and it's different now. And I think sometimes a skill set like that has more value in college. And again, when sometimes I think it's kind of like in baseball when everything becomes a 3 true outcomes and you can mix it up a little bit and start stealing bases and things teams aren't used to defending. You wonder if that has value just zigging where everyone else zags. And I think with Hunter Dickinson, sometimes I get the impression that maybe that's how his game works in college, is everybody's going more towards the pro game. That skill set isn't as valued as much as the pro level as it used to be, and it can work out really well, as a one-off situation for a school like Kansas, I would think.
And before we go into baseball, I've got to ask you, though, I've been kind of trying to track the transfer portal, and you always see people talking about winners and losers. Vanderbilt has been considered a program that's been poached a little bit in this situation. I thought Stack had a really good year considering this, everything that went into it. But what has the offseason been like so far with all the departures for Vanderbilt?
It's been brutal, to be honest. I mean, it's just a situation where I think it begs some questions about the culture. It begs a lot of questions about their NIL situation. They are going to have a hard time next year, I think, unless they're able to add an impact transfer too. No, they did add Evan Taylor from Lehigh, but that's the only significant roster addition. All their other kids are freshmen, and they might have some potential, but a lot of Stackhouse's recruits are going to be more project guys like a Jordan Wright, where they're not going to come in and give you 12, 13 points a game right off the bat. They're going to be guys that play their best ball as juniors and seniors, and they're not getting the top 100 type recruits for the most part. And so if you're not landing transfers either that are impact guys, and I think Evan Taylor will be that. He's the kind of guy that I really like. He shoots, I think, 43% from three. I want to say was an 80% foul shooter, average about 6.5 boards a game. Guys like that are very versatile and efficient are underrated players, but you got to have more of them. And they've lost Tyron Lawrence. I've conflated he and Jordan Wright, both who are transferring out and probably both heading to SEC schools, to be honest. But anyway, yeah, they just lost too much. Liam Robbins, of course, is out of eligibility. Quentin Moore-Brown, their backup big a year ago, is at the Citadel now. I think they made a mistake there, kind of encouraging him maybe to look elsewhere, thinking maybe they had an ace in the hole in the transfer portal that they didn't really have. But, yeah, it's a bad situation right now, I think, unless he's able to pull a rabbit or two out of the hat between now and the start of the season or the end of the portal window. Because the freshmen left, the freshmen that are uncommitted at this time of the year are one or two things. They're either McDonald's All-Americans or they're kids that are projects. The ones they got were not McDonald's All-Americans, and so if you can't hit in the portal and they didn't hit enough, you're in a bad spot. And I think at this point, if you're making predictions, you're probably sliding them into the Wednesday night game in the SEC tournament.
Well, and we talked about what a roller coaster it was even this year because Vandy got off to a slow start, especially in the pre-conference. And I remember speaking with you, and you thought, with the Vanderbilt administration, kind of getting a little impatient and frustrated, Jerry Stackhouse could be in trouble. But then Vandy went on that rip after the Alabama loss in the SEC regular season, and then made a strong showing in the SEC tournament, nearly getting in to the NCAAs. But could it take another turn next year if this roster does not come together?
Yeah, I just don't think it's tenable for him to be the coach after next year unless he gets to the NCAA tournament. I don't see him getting to the NCAA tournament next year. Even with – I'm going to look this up as we're doing this. Even with the season ending the way it did, if you go back and rewind, and I'm not minimizing the games that they won, but I think they only outscored teams by 4 or 5 points on the whole season. Yeah. It was a season that could – as much as they won – okay, it was 16 points on the whole season. As many games as they won, a lot of those could have easily gone the other way had a buzzer beater rimmed out or something happened differently. They just didn't build in a lot of margin for error, which is why they weren't ranked very well in the net. And I just think that you lose Robbins, you lose Tyron Lawrence. Those are two of their best three players. Evan Taylor's going to help them, but they just were a couple pieces short already, I thought, and I don't see how this is going to work for him, to be honest with you. And I think that this time next year we'll be talking about a new coach in all likelihood.
Well, and I just thought it was I know it was a previous athletic director, but I thought it was an odd hire. And then from the jump, just watching him, I don't think he's a bad basketball coach. I certainly think he's done a better job than Avery Johnson did at Alabama, but it still seems like an odd fit overall.
Yeah, and what happened is they had an athletic director, and he knew nothing about college sports. All his connections were in the NBA.
Yeah.
He was commissioner of the G League, and Stackhouse had won the G League. And Stackhouse at the time thought he was going to be an up-and-coming NBA coach one day, and that's another story. I don't think the perception of him that the public has is necessarily matched in the NBA. I don't know that he's particularly well-liked in a lot of circles up there. I mean, I do think he can coach. I'm not trying to minimize that, but there's some baggage that comes with Jerry Stackhouse that I think sometimes people don't want to deal with. And I think that Malcolm Turner had to make a very aggressive offer to convince him to come to Vanderbilt. And I think they're paying him $3.5 million a year for 6 years, something like that was the contract. And so now everybody's kind of locked into a situation where it's not really working in a lot of ways. But it's too expensive for him just to go take an assistant's job. He leaves a lot of money on the table. And I don't know how expensive it is for Vanderbilt to get rid of him, but I think at the end of last year, it's sort of hard to fire a coach, even if it looks like the program's kind of going nowhere, when he got an SEC Coach of the Year honor and all those things that came with it. So it's just this weird spot where sometimes it looks like it's working and sometimes it does, but on the whole, it's really not, and the roster situation next year doesn't look tenable, and I don't know what you do with the coach after 5 years if he's not been to the NCAA tournament. You start projecting ahead, and you're like, well, where does this start to look good based on history? And you don't have great answers, and it's just this strange spot that everybody's stuck in. Again, I do think he's a good floor coach, but I think some other aspects of the job, he's very lacking, and I think that's why they've not won more.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Well, some good basketball discussion, and certainly they do a great job, as I said, at Southeastern14.com covering SEC basketball, and they've had to everybody's covering the transfer portal. It's almost become a story unto itself, and will continue to be as SEC teams add pieces and get pieces back once the NBA draft process nears its end at the end of May, and we'll certainly continue to discuss that. But SEC baseball coming up, Chris, no doubt about it. But it was a big bounce-back weekend at home in Nashville for Vanderbilt. They beat a very good Kentucky team, swept them 3-0 after just the unexpected road sweep they suffered at the hands of Tennessee. But Vanderbilt bounces back, and now they travel to Alabama starting tonight. Alabama takes it on the chin from LSU, and what a bizarre story coming out of Ohio and New Jersey and having to do with Alabama baseball. I've never seen anything like that with this gambling situation or probe or whatever. I don't even know what to call it.
I don't either. I would love to know what the story is because, I mean, you and I have I think, poked around a little bit to figure out what in the world is going on here. And if there's a smoking gun with Alabama, I don't think it's obvious to either of us, but at the same time, like, why would what a bizarre thing, like an Alabama baseball betting scandal with, or not scandal, I shouldn't use that term because I don't know what it is, situation that's rooted in Ohio and I think now in New Jersey. I just thinking out loud here, I don't know how many people bet on college baseball. I've always thought something like that, with the lack of information out there, if you had some good insider stuff, I don't know, I don't gamble, but it would seem like maybe you could do okay. If there's not a lot of odds on something and you've got info where a lot of people aren't following it, whereas if it's Alabama football, I don't think there's a lot of secrets there. That program is under such a microscope. I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but it's a weird thing. I don't know what the deal is either. And I don't know what that does to Alabama's mindset coming into this one.
Yeah, and that's what's so weird about it. And I thought Alabama competed well against LSU. LSU just much more talented. They got such a deep lineup. Paul Skeens, we know what kind of pitcher he is, maybe the first pick in the draft. Now, I still kind of question LSU's pitching depth. And that's why there's some saying that, they're the big favorite for the national championship. They're one of them. I just wouldn't, guarantee it because I still think you have to pitch better eventually. And Alabama certainly got to LSU's bullpen. And until the last 2 weekends, LSU had not swept opponents. Now, maybe they're rounding into form. I don't know. It certainly didn't look like their pitching was outstanding last weekend. I thought Alabama competed exceptionally well before succumbing in that sweep. They swung the bats well in each game, had two substantial leads, 6-1 on certainly on Saturday, and then of course 7-3 on Sunday. But how do you see Vanderbilt matching up with Alabama? Tell us a little bit about more where Vanderbilt is right now.
Well, I've said this all year. I think Alabama's a little better than people give it credit. Alabama's 3 under 500 in the SEC, but like you said, competitive in some spots with LSU last weekend in Baton Rouge. And I think Alabama's +8 in run differential. You don't see that mentioned a lot, but it's kind of hard to be, +8 in the runs column and -8 or -3 in wins. But that's the situation right now. I think, to me, Alabama and Vandy stylistically are two of the more similar teams in the league in terms of they've got a deeper lineup batting-wise rather than maybe a Dylan Cruz or somebody like that. And that's a bad comp. Nobody's got a Dylan Cruz, but LSU. But in other words, it's not so much led by star power in the lineup as it is balance. I think that the pitching staff is deep. And frankly, a little bit underrated. But you saw this with Kentucky last weekend, too. I thought Kentucky was a team that, like Vanderbilt, very similar, athletic, balanced lineup, will take some walks and things like that. I think that this is a team that I'm not sure that the comparison is exact across the board, but maybe kind of a balanced team like Vanderbilt is, where the things that stand out maybe don't pop off the page as much as they would at an LSU. And I think that makes it an interesting matchup.
It is. And then you got to also understand Alabama, with Luke Holman getting scratched maybe an hour before. He didn't throw at all during the weekend. They haven't had Ben Hess. He's been out. We know Hitt is out with a Tommy John and a UCL the rest of the year. So, and then Antoine John. So Alabama didn't have 4 of their top pitchers in that series against LSU and still competed well. And I don't know what kind of shape Holman's in. I think he's going to be back for this series. We'll see if he starts tonight. Garrett McMillan has been coming back and trying to round into form. He threw well against Auburn, did okay against LSU, competed. We'll see what happens again the Vandy series. And then, there's some thought that Hess may return, but not sure. But I know like last year, I know Vanderbilt had some pitching injuries. They seem to be is it safe to say, though, that this Vandy team is pretty healthy right now?
I think Alabama's catching Vandy at a bad time, Drew, and I'll tell you two reasons why.
Seems that way.
They're getting healthier.
Yeah.
They're going to have their whole rotation back this weekend. Now, it's been a little wonky with Carter Holton at times. You go back 2 weekends when he didn't pitch, or 3 weekends ago, or 3 starts ago where he didn't pitch well. I think he rushed back to try to help his teammates and just didn't have his command and control, and that's not something you want to have when you face South Carolina. 2 weeks ago, he was terrific in Knoxville. Last weekend, he struggled to throw strikes against the Kentucky team that stood right on top of the plate.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there were some hit batsmen that maybe against some other teams don't come. Maybe you could chalk that one up to a tough matchup. Hunter Owen, I thought last week threw pretty well. Kentucky's a team that makes you throw a lot of pitches, so you go 4 innings and throw and give up 2 runs. It doesn't look great, but I watched it. Hunter Owen didn't have his breaking ball, which I think is his best pitch. And I think his lack of confidence, his command was so great that he threw it, by my count, 1 time that day. And so if you take away that pitch and you still throw a decent outing, if he gets that back, look out, because he's a kid who is being talked about as the top lefty potentially drafted in the draft this year out of college. Now, look, that's going to be probably late first round if it happens, but really good pitcher. You got Devin Futrell, their 3 has been really good. So they got all those guys back. The other thing is they're done with exams.
Yeah,
and I've seen a lot.
You talked about
of
that last week.
That,
Yep.
Yeah, that don't play, and I think I might have mentioned that against Tennessee that they're in the middle of. They were at that time. They were in the middle of. exam, end of semester prep work. That's just a lot to put on kids. And I'm not saying that other kids at other schools don't deal with it, but I'm pretty sure they don't deal with it like they do at Vanderbilt. Class and all that is done now. And this is usually about the time they start to play their best baseball, towards the end of the season where they're done with all those things. So that number 2. And then if you want to add a number 3, Drew, I would just say the uncertainty around this gambling situation. Again, I'm not casting aspersions at anybody. I just don't know. But it's just such an odd situation between that and the up in the air, the pitching injuries, and losing 3 last weekend for Alabama. The teams are a lot more resilient than fans are. And so it may be nothing, but just the strangest of that whole situation with whatever it is that's behind that. I don't know if that's a distraction to them or not. And just with their whole pitching situation kind of being up in the air with guys getting hurt left and right, out of what I thought is, man, if Alabama had all the pieces, and it's a shame that it hasn't, I thought that was a regional hosting caliber team. It's just not panned out that way. So I just wonder if the timing of everything for Alabama could turn out to be bad, but at the same time, that's a really good team that if it's playing close to its potential, I think is a little better than people perceive.
Well, we'll see. If they could get one game, I think it'd be good for them, and then they would need to win the next 2 series, which are, I think, very winnable against Texas A&M and Ole Miss, and then get their midweek game against Troy. Then they'd have to feel like a solid 2 heading in to Hoover and get a chance to get into the NCAAs. So, but I knew this 2-week stretch with LSU and then Vanderbilt was going to be very tough. It's just disappointing they weren't able to get one in Red Stick, certainly. And now it's very intriguing with LSU traveling to Auburn. Auburn, which had been just not playing well at all, rises up and nearly sweeps South Carolina and Columbia. And South Carolina, up until that point, had probably been the best team in the SEC.
Yeah, and man, that was not something I saw coming.
No.
Auburn has got some pitching issues outside of Vail, and man, that's not a place you want to go in a lineup you want to face with some pitching issues. But Butch Thompson is just so good at getting the most out of what he's got.
Yes,
Drew, and he pulled it off in South Carolina. You talked about them being the betting favorite for the national title. I just don't know that I see it that way. I could see it, and I think they're top 2 or 3, but man, they're pitching, and Skeens has gone from absolutely unhittable to just really good lately. After that, Ty Floyd, it's been a mixed bag of what you get. They can't really find a third starter.
Agreed.
The bullpen has been hit by injuries. If you want to talk the team I think should be favored, go look at Wake Forest and pull up that stat sheet, because they've got 3 starters with ERAs, I think 250 or below on the weekends. They've got that. Landon Sims would be a stretch, but it's that super reliever who throws a lot of innings in a swing spot. They've got 3 or 4 other guys outside of that have put up good numbers. All their guys all walk more than they strike out. They've got 3 guys with 13 or 14 homers or more. Like, I feel like Wake has got the stuff, and I'm sorry for taking a sidebar.
Oh.
A lot of what LSU has, plus a lot of answers at pitching that LSU doesn't have. And I don't know. I know LSU's won all the series, and I still think probably the best team in the league. But, man, you give them one more pitching injury to the wrong guy, and I wonder – I mean, and maybe they can still outslug everybody. That lineup's that good after Cruz. But I've got some questions about LSU, and you just saw Auburn pull a rabbit out of a hat one week, and I'll be interested to see if they can do it one more time.
Yeah, I remember Tennessee dominated last year regular season and tournament, and they didn't get to Omaha. So, and they had a great team, but as I've hinted, there were some other things going on. But still, and I think karma may have got them a little bit. They still have a great program, but still. And so they fell short. But, again, great stuff, Chris. You and Blake do a great job. Let everybody know how to connect with you guys over at Southeastern 14. You're going to continue to have blowout coverage on your YouTube channel of SEC Baseball and, of course, continue transfer portal news and hoops, and then, of course, what you do over at Vandy Sports.
Yeah, most of our content at Southeastern 14 is on the YouTube channel. We do have a website, but we're putting just about everything on YouTube now because it's just so much easier to get stuff out quicker, or more quickly, excuse me. And so most of it's there. We're doing baseball videos just about every day. I'll have one in the morning that recaps Vandy, Alabama quickly, and also Missouri, Ole Miss. So if you're just looking for a spot to get your quick information on what's going on in SEC baseball, the morning after all the weekend series, we'll have a recap of those. We do power rankings. I did some NCAA tournament projections this week. That's up. You can see where I've got everybody in regionals. We'll continue to do that. Blake is killing it on the transfer portal with basketball. And I was literally sitting here doing some research on football as we prepare to start rolling out a lot of our football content for the coming season. And so we hit those three sports really hard. And of course, if you're looking for Vandy coverage, you go to Vandy Sports, and I'll give the Vanderbilt angle on things this weekend too, as I'm able to watch. And so, if you're looking for coverage of Vandy in the SEC, we'll have you covered both places.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's Chris Lee. We're going to go on a break and wrap up this Thursday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared.
The Blitz has been called.
Tom Abraham here from my friend Brian Hamaker and his team at North Alabama Mortgage. Look, buying a home is the biggest purchase you will make in your life, and it can be a bit intimidating, so you want people that can help walk you through the mortgage process and get you the best deal possible. That's what North Alabama Mortgage does, and they do it in Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida, from first-time purchases to refis, conventional, VA, FHA, and USDA loans. They have the solution at North Alabama Mortgage. Visit NorthAlabamaMortgage.com to learn more. That's NorthAlabamaMortgage.com.
Normally, when you call a roofing company, all you hear is, you need a new roof. Not when you call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Since 1965, the folks at Fleming have been focused on what you need, whether it's an easy repair or a full roof replacement, commercial or residential. And when it comes to storm damage, you want Fleming on your side. They know all the ins and outs of insurance claims and will guide you through the entire process. Log on FlemingHSV.com and book your free estimate today. Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
What's better than Valley Equipment Rental? 2 Valley Equipment Rentals, and that's just what we have now. The original on the South Memorial Parkway between Drake and Airport Road, and their second location on North Memorial Parkway just north of Winchester Road. Valley Equipment is locally owned and has more skid steers, excavators, and lifts than anyone in the area, plus all the small tools that you need to get the job done like a pro. And if you are a pro, you need to check out the new North location now because Valley Equipment has what you need. Learn more at valleyequipmentrents.com.
This is Wes Neighbors talking to Chris Haygood of Bob Wallace Appliance. Chris, what sets you apart from other appliance dealerships?
Wes, these appliances are going into the most used room in your house, your kitchen. The way we have these appliances displayed, it's easy for you to visualize how they'll look in your home. Wes, what sets us apart is the people. They're well trained. In fact, they live and breathe these appliances. And if you need service, you'll really appreciate our parts department.
Contact Bob Wallace Appliance at 256-533-2121.
Great food and the best live entertainment is what it's all about at the Furniture Factory Bar and Grill. Head to downtown Huntsville every Tuesday for karaoke on the only outdoor karaoke stage in North Alabama. Thursday night is the Valley's longest running and biggest bike night. Food and drink specials, giveaways, and live music on the patio. And the Furniture Factory menu is fully loaded with options from steaks to salads, plus a whole lot more. Featuring a weekday happy hour that starts at 3. 619 Meridian Street, downtown Huntsville, and online at FurnitureFactoryBarGrill.com.
I'm business analyst Jill Schlesinger with a small business success story sponsored by the U.S. Postal Service. Stitch Fix offers clothing and accessories for women on the go, selected by personal stylists and delivered right to your door. Chief Operating Officer Julie Bornstein says, our entire business is centered on making shopping more convenient, so it was vital to select a shipping provider that could provide that level of service. Julie knows that when you rely on the U.S. Postal Service, your business becomes their business. The U.S. Postal Service, priority you.
Why should you trust in the U.S. Postal Service to deliver for your business? Because when you ship with us, your business becomes our business. Whether you have 3 employees or 300, you'll have a nationwide fleet of delivery trucks working for you. We make more e-commerce deliveries to homes than anyone else in the country. See what we can do for you at USPS.com/forbusiness. The United States Postal Service. Priority, you.
Welcome back as we wrap up this Thursday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. Big thanks to Chris Lee. We talked a little SEC basketball today because Hunter Dickinson, he chose Kansas, but Kentucky was heavily involved. We talked a little bit of Vanderbilt and Jerry Stackhouse because, once again, it's like a roller coaster. It's taking a downturn with all the departures off of their roster. It's just been really interesting to watch it in the off season and where things are trending going into year 5, I believe, for Coach Stack. So that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. We talked SEC baseball, big series starting tonight, and you can hear Game 1 on ESPN 97.7 The Zone tonight at 6:55 as they will take on the Vanderbilt Commodores, and then they'll hear that series on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We're going to try to head out tonight over to Priceville to watch them play against JP2, so see us out there. Don't forget the Bandyman, Billy Lowry, Captain Cool, John Abraham from 2 to 4, the afternoon Blitz later. And don't forget, download our app, the Google Store, the Apple Store, Blitz Sports Radio. This is D Squared. We're going to be with you tomorrow at 9 a.m. as we're going to wrap up another great week of the Recruiting Blitz. We appreciate all your support, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody, and we'll talk to you on Friday at 9 a.m.
Primary goal is to save you money, and lots of it. Typical clients realize their return on investment within 3 to 6 months. That means the re-insulation actually pays for itself and then some. See if we can help you. Contact Eagle Insulation today, 256-755-1556, or log on insulatewitheagle.com.
Tom Luganbill here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
Now, it's time for your Atlanta Braves morning update.
Braves blast 6 homers in a rout of the Marlins on Wednesday night.
The 2023 Braves promotional calendar features a variety of exciting gate giveaways. To see the full schedule, head to Braves.com/promos.
Wednesday night at Lone Depot Park, the Braves scored early and often en route to a 14-6 rout of the Marlins, clinching a series victory along the way. Braves broke it wide open early with a 7-run second inning, highlighted by a Marcell Ozuna grand slam and 2-run homer off the bat of Michael Harris II.
1-1, and that's driven well to right field. Sprinting back Hampson. He just busted that thing to pieces into the bullpen. A 2-run home run by Michael Harris.
But the Braves' long balls were just starting as Ozuna added a solo shot in the 3rd. Then in the 5th, it was Ronald Acuna Jr. with a tape measure 461-foot homer off the batter's eye in center field. Austin Riley and Ozzie Albies would also add homers in the victory as the Braves improved to 21-10 on the season and now have a chance at a sweep coming up as they wrap up the road trip coming up this afternoon at 4:10 Eastern. Hear all the action right here on the Braves Radio Network with Ben Ingram and Nick Green on the call. I'm Kevin McAlpin, and this has been your Braves Radio Network morning update.
Who have come through this town who have thought that they were a lot smarter than they actually are. I don't think that's the case with him. And I don't expect this to be a problem. He'll get caught off guard by it, and he might make a couple of comments like, really, this is a big deal, or he'll kind of respond with...
Hi, it's Mike Greenberg. Coming up next, it's the Chuck Oliver Show. Plus, stay tuned this evening for The Drive.